Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Praj joins us today. She is the founder of Cyberpink Advisors. Praj, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Greg. Happy to be here.
And thank you for giving me a little bit of grace and allowing me to not pronounce your last name, but I would like for you to pronounce your last name just so that everybody can realize that I would have had a little struggle with it.
No worries at all. I totally get it. I am Praj Prayag-Deb, and you can just call me Praj for the reasons that Greg just went over, and keep it easy. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say my whole name. And I founded Cyberpink Advisors, like Greg said. So that's an easier name to remember me by as well.
Well, I was able to get that one too. So thank you. And I would like to hear about your entire journey, about how you got started in information security and cybersecurity, and then take us all the way to what led you to be the founder of Cyberpink, what led you to start that, and what it is that you do there.
Absolutely. So I did, cybersecurity wasn't a very strange choice for me, considering I do have a computer science background in my bachelor's and master's and so on and so forth. But I was always attracted to technology that was more analytical and not really related to coding. So I never really, wanted to become a software programmer as such. So back in the day, almost 2 decades ago, when SOX and PCI was taking us by the storm, and it was all being introduced and all these different compliances were coming into the picture, I started my journey more on the public accounting side with Ernst & Young, just kind of strengthening my knowledge of the compliances and using my strong tech background to make sure that auditing is not just a checkbox, but more, trying to go deeper into the technology and adding value there. After spending about, I'm going to say 8 years, the initial junior part of my career on the tech audit side, I decided to go further deeper into that whole value add proposition, and switched over into the other side of the fence, if you will, into technology risk that has now eventually evolved into cybersecurity risk. And I was fortunate enough to be able to work at some really large, heavily regulated organizations, a lot of Fortune 50 companies, top tier banks like Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Macquarie International Bank, in various leadership roles, just strengthening my knowledge about technology risk management, third party, incident response, just kind of building that whole risk and control environment and tying it into that. And then that led me more into the leadership phase of my journey, where for the last, probably been in leadership roles for 7-8 years, but the last 5 years from 2018, I spent building the entire cybersecurity risk GRC program at Horizon Media, where we started from the ground up. I was hired by the CISO just a few months after he was hired. So that was very interesting, after coming from such a regulated background to come to such a green playing field, and starting from scratch and kind of understanding how do we prioritize what is it that's going to add the most value to the business in the limited budget that we have. And I came up with this people process tools methodology, which I've spoken at conferences about, where you build a lean GRC program by aligning closely with the business and ensuring that your people and your process and your technology works in smooth conjunction with each other. Because I've seen a lot of waste in those areas where companies have one, but the other is not complementing it. But I can talk more about that a little later. But staying focused on my journey. So I focused on that and built a very successful GRC program with cybersecurity risk, cybersecurity awareness, creating that culture of accountability, adding third-party risk and incident management, and getting us ready for various compliances. So I continued that. And, given, Greg, we were just talking about the market, and given how dynamic this field is and how it's evolving, I just felt that I have a lot to give in that space of creating that value-added um, cybersecurity risk program, either as a fractional CISO or as a GRC leader, and that led me to founding my own business and converting it into more of a small business consulting service for the businesses that can't necessarily afford a McKinsey or a Deloitte to come in and kind of charge them a whole lot of money. And obviously they have terrific standards, but my goal is to sort of partner with small businesses to solve their small cybersecurity problems that would be kind of insignificant of a project for a larger company to take on, and help them build cybersecurity or GRC programs that are tailored to their business. So almost become like business drivers, or they are not in the real sense of it going to lead to income for the company, but cybersecurity can be a very strong business growth driver if used correctly.
Yes.
That's sort of my goal that led me to establish Cyberpink Advisors. And I'm still obviously very new in the consulting space, so I'm still establishing myself and growing my client base. And the idea is to do good work, stay integral to my mission of adding value to small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and make sure that we are tackling cybersecurity one problem at a time.
I love it, and love having you in the fight with us, because we definitely, I believe that us as an industry, we don't pay enough attention to small and mid-sized businesses. I think that we have spent so much time looking at the large organizations, as you mentioned, and ignoring or neglecting on the other side of the equation that really we have, what is it, roughly in the United States, 45% of all business or all employees are in small, mid-sized businesses, and over 99% of all businesses in the United States, which include single person, are SMBs, or small businesses. So and yet we don't seem to pay enough attention there. So I want to ask you about threats to small and mid-sized businesses in just a moment, but you touched on something which I thought was rather interesting. I don't believe that I've ever spoken to someone on here who went from third line audit to second line risk. And I'm wondering if you can give any insights about how that was.
Yes. So you're right. You're absolutely right. It was a while ago that I switched. So I've been in second line risk for longer than I've been in third line audit. But I just felt that, as third line, you're restricted on how much you can partner with the business or how much you can partner with technology teams. It's really very minimal. It's obviously more from an independent opinion perspective that you're providing that angle on risk management. And I just felt like it's, obviously traditionally, like I said, when SOX and all the compliances took us by the storm, risk was looked at similar to how audit was looked at, which is a matter of policing, right? You're just basically policing the technology teams to do certain things. But I just felt like we need to look at it differently. We need to make sure that we're partnering with technology teams to create that culture of risk accountability, to embed risk management as a part of our everyday processes so that it's not an afterthought. And I just felt that I'm limited in audit, obviously, to do that, just because by nature, like I said, it's supposed to be an independent third party. And that's what led me to hop over. I always call it hopping over the fence, but it's sort of like two sides of the same fence, if you will, whereas, they each have its individual value. And I think that in second line, it gives me a lot more scope to work with the technology teams to sort of create that risk accountability, that risk culture. And then that now leading me to the journey where I believe, like, I'll give you an example. This is something I was able to do at Horizon Media, where I worked, like I said, I established the GRC program. We didn't have a third party risk program, and it wasn't really something that was in the budget to get funded, but we were able to, me and the CISO were able to point out that a lot of our clients are actually asking us about our control environment, and a lot of our clients are asking us about the vendors that we use. So if we create a third-party risk program and create some sort of a trust package for our client that prove or show the controls that we have and how we are evaluating them and what is our standing with the controls and like how compliant we are, that's actually going to increase their trust in us and possibly become a business enabler. And we were able to sell that and build it, and it did become one. And then our client team started asking us for more and more documents about our program and more policies for them to actually use it in their client pitches, because data is everything. Almost all companies are either a milder or a pretty strong version of a data company now, because everything is cyber, everything is in the cloud or online. So no matter what your business is, you are going to have a data component. And I think that partnering with technology to embed those solutions as a part of the process seems like the way forward. And I think that was very exciting to me. So I love the transition, to be honest. And my audit background also provided me with a very strong controls mindset, which enabled me to sort of help the tech teams formalize their processes. You'd be surprised how many small and medium-sized businesses are actually doing the right thing. Just because they don't have a person coming in and evaluating them doesn't mean they're not doing the right thing. They just don't know what a formal control is and how do they formalize it. Like I worked with a client where I simply helped her create an information security policy and controls around what she already had. She only had to implement maybe about 20% more controls to satisfy her client requirements. She already had 80%. She just didn't know it. So I think that sort of that is very rewarding to me, and I think that sort of helps me. The audit background helps me with that mission as well. So it was great to kind of have had that, but it was also great to have transitioned into the risk side, where I believe I can, add more value and partner more.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that sometimes SMBs they don't understand the concept of the three lines of defense, and it really. I always try to emphasize that when talking with SMBs, I try to emphasize that model first to explain to them what and why and how things are different. And yeah, you're right. I found the same thing too, where a lot of SMBs, they're actually doing a lot of stuff, they just don't understand it. They don't know how to kind of compartmentalize this. I remember I had a boss once who didn't like the word control because she thought it was too controlling, and I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just the industry name. I mean, what are you going to do? But you've been now working for SMBs for some time, and you have a passion for it, obviously, and I'm sure that you've seen a lot of issues with regards to them. They're doing some stuff right, but they do have unique challenges, some not unique, some unique. Today, what would you say are one or a couple of the more significant threats to them in information security?
So I think the threat of sort of social engineering and phishing and malware still remains pretty high, especially because SMBs lack the budgets to get full-blown tools for tracking and monitoring and cybersecurity awareness. And I think that continues to be a challenge for organizations that have less budget. But I think these organizations need to look at it at a micro level, just creating training for new hires and maybe subscribing to trainings that are per person based, so that as they expand, they can expand their budget. And there's also open source tooling available, but that has its risks as well, and that's kind of going up as well in small and medium businesses, because I think in order to save costs, they use more open source tools, so there's that risk associated with that as well. There is, I think, to these businesses, there's also a large third-party risk because of the fact that obviously they're constrained in the amount of people they can hire or amount of processes they can create in-house. That leads to a lot of outsourcing or usage of third-party vendors, but they often don't have third-party risk programs that are well-defined. And if they do have them, even for medium, and this is unfortunately, I've seen this across large organizations as well, but especially for this sector, they don't have the expertise to tie it into their incident response program. So their third-party incident risk increases quite significantly because of that. There's also, the traditional ones like making sure your patch management software is and processes are up to date, and just handling insider threat and all of that. But I also feel that one of the key things for small to medium businesses is, and I call it learning how to walk before you learn to run, which
Right.
is people are now running for AI, right? So because AI is coming, it's coming at a very rapid pace. So there's a new ISO standard for it, and people are using all these tools with AI, or there are a lot of small businesses are popping up that are kind of, using AI to build tools and stuff like that. But they haven't really taken a pause and looked back on what processes are automated in the first place. So AI cannot just pick up processes that are not defined and are highly manual and wave a magic wand and solve them overnight, right? So I think one of the
Right.
challenges for these businesses is also to find the time and the budget to take a pause and reflect and ensure that their baseline technology processes are efficient and lean and automated, and they have problems defined for AI to solve, because otherwise AI is going to pose a larger risk than a benefit. If you just introduced it in sort of an organized chaos, I think that is going to lead to more risks, and obviously then you're going to have to kind of mitigate that risk, and then there's going to be more standards and more regulations. So I think that there is a potential for some chaos in that, and I think that it is important for small and mid-sized businesses to start assessing their cybersecurity risk now, so that they are ready for a clear understanding on which processes are manual, which can be automated, which are lean, what tools add value, so that whenever they decide to introduce AI in their core business offering, or just as an sort of technology enhancement for automation, they're very clear on where exactly it's going to add value and reduce that risk significantly. So I think that now is something, as we transition from technology risk to cybersecurity risk, when we started going into the cloud, this is now the second phase of transition, where I think it's important for organizations to have a clear view of where the risk lies and where there is scope for automation, and how can they actually embed that culture of embedding risk in your technology processes is more significant now than ever, so that you're ready to introduce more automation.
I love the saying there, organized chaos. I know we've all walked through that many times. Sometimes it's hard to get out of. You touched on several great points there. One that really resonated with me has to deal with the third-party risk. And I shortly before this podcast, I was working on a presentation that I'm going to be giving for the EC Council on August 28th. So I just needed to plug myself there for a moment. But it's on incident response related to the CrowdStrike issue. And one of the items that I was working on this morning was about third-party risk, because some folks might have immediately thought, well, why would I care about CrowdStrike? I'm a small business. I'm not going to have that sort of powerful EDR there. But what about your third-party providers? And I think we saw that with CrowdStrike, that's a significant risk. So going forward with your incident response plans, even if you weren't affected by CrowdStrike, you need to make sure that you're looking at your third parties, because they may be affected as well. So I think that all of those are great. I think generative AI is, and just AI in general is, it is sort of that shiny object, right, that everybody's chasing right now, and without a reason for
Yep.
using it, why go for it? Sometimes we find that after trying new things, that if we try the new thing without a plan or organized chaos, that can lead to a lot of issues, right?
Yep.
So I mean,
Absolutely.
and you don't want to increase risk by trying to address risk.
Exactly. It's a catch-22 right now, and I think that we do have it. It's still under control for us to get ahead of the game and assess our risk and lay out where we can. So third-party risk is actually a brilliant example of where generative AI can actually help us. Because going back to your incident risk problem, what I've seen, and I've recommended this to a couple of companies and clients, both in full-time and with Cyberpink, is we need to create a dynamic tiering of our third-party risk program that talks to our incident response program. Both of these are almost always disjointed, where they should be very closely connected, where we are assessing our third-party vendors that have had higher number of incidents a lot more closely than the ones that aren't tier one, that have no business impact or haven't had incidents. So there needs to be a lot more sort of thought process going in there that generative AI can help us with, and it can help us with, scanning all these documents and tools and doing iterative reviewing. But we need to have a third-party risk program in place for that. We need to have assessed our environment for that. We need to have laid out our processes with the criteria that we want to assess the vendors with already for that. So we can't use generative AI and start running unless we've learned to walk first.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it is exciting out there to have these options to help us with risk. But it all comes down to the basics. We need to be very risk aware of the environment and think through it before you do anything rash. But all this different technology, different decisions, different risks and threats out there, it produces a rather stressful environment. And we kind of, some of us, I think, thrive on stress to an extent, but it doesn't matter if you do thrive or not, you have to get away from it. And within our industry, we have such a problem, it seems at times, with burnout or trying to take on too much because you want to try to solve everything. And of course, the job market isn't exactly the best that it's been recently. I think it's getting a little bit better now, but it's still a cause for a lot of stress when you're spending months and months and putting in applications, dozens, sometimes even I've heard hundreds of applications. What's one of the things that you do to get away from the stress, to decompress, to just kind of relax and forget it all?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question. And I completely resonate with everything you said about the job market and the stress with cybersecurity, because it is, and it really sometimes truly never leaves you. So that's why I said it's interesting when you say decompose, decompress and leave it all behind, because I don't know if you can truly leave it all behind.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, I truly believe that your family comes first. Work is work. We are solving some pretty complex problems in this world, but at the same time, we do need to focus on the things that matter the most, which is our health, our family. I love baking. I love yoga. I have an 8-year-old, so he's a huge de-stressor. Just go to the backyard and hit some balls with him. And I'm like a new person, and he's always encouraging us to stay on our toes and stay fit. And I think that it's also important in work to prioritize, right? I remember when I first started at Horizon Media, my CISO gave me some very good advice, and he said, "There's nothing here. So if you think about what can happen, because there's nothing right now as a program, you're going to be completely overwhelmed." And as much as the job market is at a pretty tough spot right now, and it seems like it's low, the reality is there is so much need for companies
Yes.
to build cybersecurity programs to assess risk for, fractional CISO, GRC, all that eventually the market will change. But outside of that, once you're in that position, you cannot do it all. There is always going to be something from a risk perspective that you haven't gotten to yet. So I think it's very important to prioritize, to organize yourself. And that's where that whole business value comes into picture, right? It's constantly important to reassess what has the largest impact, focus your time and money and resources on that. And it's important to compartmentalize your work and your private life, and know that your health is not going to come back, your family needs your time. And I think both of those kind of keep it a little bit more humane and more rational. The job market right now is not helping with the stress at all. But I think I'm pretty positive that it's going to change in the future, especially in fall, as we sort of move past the election phase and the Fed's cutting rate and all of that stuff. I think 2025 is definitely going to look much better. And companies need cybersecurity risk. It's not something that is going away. It's not something that is going to be a permanently low market. So I think it's important to keep that perspective and keep pushing for the cybersecurity goals, and keep finding things outside of work to keep yourself sort of happy and sane and focus on your health. Health is very important, because without that, there's nothing.
Right. Without health, you can't be on your A game, so to speak. But and as you mentioned earlier, as far as the need out there, there are so many small, mid-sized businesses that are doing some of the stuff they just don't realize. They're living in organized chaos. And I think I'm going to adopt that saying now. So I will pay you a nickel every time I use it. And hopefully that'll be enough of a franchise fee. If it's going to be a dime, we might have to negotiate that a little bit.
Sounds like a plan.
So, what future plans do you have for you or for Cyberpink or both?
Yeah, so I'm kind of enjoying this entrepreneurial journey right now, and I just feel like it's giving me a lot more opportunity to sort of explore that space where, as you rightly said, we've neglected that small to medium sized businesses. I just feel like I have so
Mhm.
much value to add to them. So I'm intending to pursue this journey and get out there and try to help as many small to medium sized businesses as possible, hopefully expand. I don't necessarily want to become the next McKinsey, but I do want to have a strong group of like-minded professionals that we can team up and sort of help tackle these problems. So I'm going to see where this journey takes me. I'm not closed doors to leadership positions or CISO positions or anything like that, but currently this seems like something that's very rewarding and something that I believe has a lot of potential, not just from like a growth or a monetary or a career perspective, but just from a satisfaction perspective. I just feel like this is something that we, at a grassroots level, like you said, 45% businesses are technically small businesses. And I just feel like there isn't enough time to tackle that. And I just feel like it's very rewarding. So I intend to continue going on this path. One client at a time, and hope to handle and reduce cybersecurity risk and help the companies scale up without actually having, I cannot say without risk, there's always going to be risk, but help the companies grow and scale up more safely and in a more risk aware fashion.
Well, I wish you the best of luck there. I do have to say that having started the independent journey myself 7.5 years ago, I would never look back. My only regret is that I didn't do it earlier. But then again, sometimes you have to do it when the time is right. So, Praj, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, special thank you for being flexible to reschedule this for everybody. We did reschedule our recording because I needed to do a travel for family matter this past weekend. So that's why this is dropping Thursday instead of Tuesday, but we'll be back on the regular schedule again next week. And Praj, again, thank you so much and best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Greg. It was my pleasure. And I have to do another session with you just to kind of hear inspirational stories from your independent journey. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you.
We'll have to do that. And everybody, stay secure.